Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm the Blundering Bishop, and thank you for joining me for another 5-minute theory video. For those of you who've not seen a 5-minute theory video before, what we do is we try to take a key concept in chess, an opening or a position, and we boil it down into a quick 5-minute overview designed to encourage you to go and study on your own. Focus of today's 5-minute theory is the Old Benoni Defense, one of Black's most interesting tries against the move 1d4. Something I play at the very low level at which I play because it has the potential to trap our opponent in a number of interesting ways that I'll show you later. Benoni, the term, actually refers to a number of different openings. So there's a modern Benoni, a Czech Benoni, you can get into the Benko Gambit and that sort of thing. I think Benoni is a Hebrew, means son of sorrow. It's taken from the title of a 19th century book on the queen pawn opening. So the Benoni starts after 1d4, and if Black is looking to play one of the varieties of the modern Benoni or the Czech Benoni or the Benko Gambit, they will generally start with the move knight f6. And what that does, it prevents White from being able to take e4, and so White usually will play c4. And from here, you're not into a Benoni necessarily at the moment because Black's got the option of playing the King's Indian or a range of other systems if they want to. But to get into Benoni lines, Black will usually play c5. Now from here, it continues a number of ways, and I said there's a large variety of different branches, modern and Czech and so on. But if White goes d5, now Black's got a number of options as to which line they're going to play. So this, for example, is the Benko Gambit, gambiting that b-pawn with a view to breaking up White's control of the centre early on. So you give up a pawn, but you disrupt White's plan in the centre. They could just go the move e5 into the Czech Benoni, and they're eventually going to play d6. And you can see with the Czech Benoni here that there's a huge weakness for Black in this d6 pawn. And White's probably going to spend a bit of time doing a bit of manoeuvring with various pieces with a view to challenging this pawn, because if it falls, Black is in a sorry position indeed. So those are some of the modern and Czech lines. As I say, they will start with the move knight f6 for Black. But the Old Benoni, the one we're focusing on today, does not start with the move knight f6. We start with the move c5. So we immediately challenge White's control of the centre. We are not offering a gambit, and I'll show you why in a moment, even though it may look like one at first glance, and your first move is probably thinking about whether you should take that. But what we're offering effectively is to trade our flank pawn for White's centre pawn, as you do in defences like the Sicilian to 1e4. So the Old Benoni tends to continue on its main line with the move d5 for White. So White should not take this pawn, I'll tell you why in a moment. So it tends to continue d5, and then Black's got a couple of ways of playing it. They could play knight f6 immediately challenging the pawn, or just d6, which is sort of the Old Benoni main line. From here, White plays c4, probably see knight f6 for Black after that, knight c3, and then Black might look to fianchetto the kingside bishop. And you can see what you end up with in the Old Benoni position is good space advantage for White, good control of the centre, but Black has a very solid pawn structure, is going to look to create a strong attack on the queen side, and at some point we'll probably be looking for the move b5 to bust the position open. So it is a very interesting way of playing on the main line, but one of the great traps of the Old Benoni that I enjoy surprising uninitiated opponents with is what happens after White makes the somewhat foolish decision to take on c5. So there's no way now for White to hold on to this material gain after the move e6 for Black. You can see the bishop is immediately challenging that pawn, and there is not a sensible way for White to hold on to it. So let's just have a look at the options White would have to try and hold that material. I mean, bishop e3 looks terrible and is terrible, because after knight a6, there's no way for White to defend that pawn at all, and you could end up in a position where Black has a piece and a pawn developed, and White has nothing outside of the second rank. So clearly that's not a way to hold the material. The other move that looks good initially for white is b4, but actually it's not. If black dithers here and maybe plays a developing move, and white manages to get their bishop onto b2, then they are up material. But if you're bold for black and you strike immediately with a5, well then again, no way for white to hold this material, because either you're taking this pawn, they're taking and losing 2 pawns, potentially, or they foolishly try to defend that pawn further, perhaps with a3, and then as you can see, actually that pawn is pinned to the rook, so they can't take or they lose their rook. This move c3 to try and defend that pawn is something we call the Old Benoni trap. So after exchanges on b4, black has an excellent move here. I'm sure you've all spotted it already. It took me about 3 minutes to spot it the first time I did any study on this. But the move is queen f6 for black, and you can see we're staring down at that rook. There's just about a way for white to hold on to that rook, but they have to sacrifice their knight in order to do it. So either way, white is losing significant material here. Their pawn structure is just all over the place, and this is clearly a fantastic position for black. So I think the moral of the story, and I suppose I've given away all my secrets to those of you who I was hoping to surprise on chess.com with this opening, do not take the pawn for white. This is not a gambit. Just push past it and get yourself into the Old Benoni position that will end up looking something like this after the rest of the moves. So there you go, that's a quick potted overview of the Old Benoni Defense, something I'd really urge you to go and have a look at in your tries against the move 1d4. It's really interesting theory behind a lot of it, and whilst the modern and the Czech Benonis and the Benko Gambit are really the area that people study seriously, I think the surprise element of the Old Benoni really does have some value. So we'll be back with another 5-minute theory video next week. Thank you so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content here, please do feel free to leave a like, hit that subscribe button. If there's something you think we can improve, please feel free to leave us a helpful comment. Thank you very much, and goodbye.